Here are the answers to Summer 2013 Foundation Tier Paper 1. Write this in words. The most common mistakes, people just missed out the 6. It's 4,601. The 5s is in the thousands column, that's units, tens, hundreds, thousands. Rounded to the nearest 10, well there's the tens column. The next number is a 3, so I don't need to round up, so it's 4,770. The smallest even number in the table, and which number would round to 4,700? Well, if I rounded that, I'd round at that point there. The next number is a 6, so that one would round up to a 7, so that would round to 4,700. Greatest number of candidates, Egypt. Candidates from Malaysia, reading across on the scale here, if that's 500, that must be 250. The number of candidates from one country was just over 1,000. So looking at the scale, there's 1,000. Just over 1,000 would be Kenya. That line there would be 1,250, so Cyprus is much too big. Number of candidates from Spain was just under 750. So looking at the scale here, there's 250, 500, 750, so Spain should be just under the 750. So this sequence is going up in 8s, so if you count up in 8s you get 42 and 50. So if the 20th term was 154, what must it have been 8 before that? 8 less than 154 is 146. Write down a number which is in the 9 times table, a number which divides into 90, a square number. Some people still confuse square numbers and cube numbers. 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, and so on. 5 squared is 25. 3 cubed, 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. That was the mistake people made. Square root of 576, just type it into your calculator. A prime number, well that's even, so it's not going to be prime because it will divide by 2. We know that divides by 5, that will divide by 2. That divides by 3 and 9, that will divide by 2. 30 divides by 10 and 2 and 15 and 5. So 29 must be the prime number. 3 equal sides is an equilateral triangle. If it only had 2 equal sides, it would be isosceles. 8 sides is an octagon, just like octopus. Lines of symmetry for sine C doesn't have any. There's nowhere that I could reflect it onto itself because of these arrows in the middle. How many times could I spin round D and sit it on top of itself? 3 times. Every metre is 100 centimetres. So 3.8 lots of 100 centimetres is 380. It takes 1,000 metres to make a kilometre. So 300 is 0.3 kilometres. Just write it out longhand. It doesn't take long, but it means you get the right answer. From 8 AM to 6 PM is 10 hours. The 24-hour clock, so you've got round to 12 o'clock and then you keep adding on another 6 hours after that, so 12 plus 6 is 1800 hours. As a decimal, type that into your calculator and hit SD 0.16. As a fraction, type that into your calculator, hit equals so that it does the cancelling for you, 4/25. 1 to 4, this is sort of the reverse of cancelling. 1 to 4 would be the same as 2 to 8, or 3 to 12, or 4 to 16, or 5 to 20. Okay, so 3 to 12. If I times that side by 3, I must times that side by 3 to keep them in the same ratio. Common mistake was not to read the question here. It asks for it in the 12-hour clock. That just means normal time. So in the 12-hour clock, this is 4:35 PM. 5 to 8 looks like that. You know you've bought 7 tickets which cost 360 each, plus 9 tickets which cost something each, and in total you spent 4,500 rupees. So you've got a little equation here. So if we tidy it up by doing that multiplication, just getting rid of the times sign here, we've got 9x equals 1,980, so x is 220. So you can read the area of your carpet across this scale and the cost to clean it up this scale. If the carpet is 41 square meters, you go up and across, and it was 115. Now the examiner was very strict here. It didn't allow you anything other than 115. You had to be exact, and you can see it there, that it does line up exactly with that line. If the cost was 65, so there's 50, 55, 60, 65. How big was it? Well, it was 23 square meters. Again, nothing else will do. That was the exact answer. The carpet looks like this, so it's 6.8 meters long and 5 meters wide. So the area times the length by the width is 34 square meters. So if I go back to my diagram and read up and across from 34, you find that it costs $95 to clean it. Type 3/8 into your calculator. Work out 5/6 of is always times. 5/6 times 54, and it's 45 kilograms. Now there were lots of mistakes made here. People typed in 2/3 and didn't see the dot on top of it on their calculator. It's not 0.6, it's 0.6 with a dot on top, which means 0.6 recurring. And remember to work all the answers out to the same number of decimal points, so it's easy to compare them. So then it's easy to see that the smallest of these numbers is 60, then 64, then 65, then 66. So write the fractions back in that order. 3c squared plus 5c squared is 8c squared. Take away 1c squared takes me down to 7c squared. This one was done very well. 4x's and 5x's is 9x's. Minus 3y's minus another 2y's is minus 5y's. This one was done very well as well. The probability that Aaron, well, there's only one card out of the 5 with Aaron written on it. All 5 cards out of the 5 have a name that begins with A, and there are 2 cards out of the 5 that have 5-letter names. There's one, there's the other one. This one was done fairly well by some people as well. These dashes mean that all 3 sides are the same length. That means that it's an equilateral triangle, and one of the properties of an equilateral triangle is that all angles are 60 degrees, because if all the sides are the same, all the angles are the same. So you need 3 angles that are the same as each other, which also add up to 180, so each one must be 60. These dashes here, only on these 2 sides, means that this is an isosceles triangle. If this is isosceles, that means the angles at the base of the 2 equal sides are equal, so those 2 are both 65. And because all 3 angles must add up to 180, and I've already got 130 in these 2, there must be 50 there. So in total, the angle ABC must be 110. Everybody got full marks for part A, which you should have done. Put x is 3 and y is 7 into this equation, you get 50. Everybody really should have got full marks for this one as well. It's in your theory folder. So there's the equation that they've given you. All I've done is rewritten it from there. We know that p is 43, so I replace that with a 43. We know that y is 6.5, so I replace that. And the only thing left for me to find is the x here. So if I tidy up the rest of the equation, 2 lots of 6.5 is 13. So I've got a nice simple equation here. Move the 13 to the other side. So 12x's must be 30. so x must be 2.5. This one wasn't that hard. You've got to give a formula for the area. So if you look at this shape, it's a triangle next to a rectangle. The triangle has base 3x and height 4x, and the rectangle has length y and width 4x. The formula for the area of a triangle is a half base times height, so that's the area of that bit. Formula for the area of a rectangle is length times width, so that's the area of that bit. I've got to simplify it as much as I can, so 3x times 4x, 3 times 4 is 12, x times x is x squared, so this makes 12x squared, so a half of it is 6x squared plus 4xy. The mode is the most common number. The most common mark was 4. 14 students got 4. The median is the mark of the middle person. So if I've got 40 students, the middle person is going to be the 20th. So 13 students got 0, and then another 2, so now I've allocated 15 students, and then another 3, so now I've got 18 students accounted for. So the 20th student is going to be somewhere into this group here. It's going to be about 2 pupils in to these 8. So the 20th student will be one of these people who scored 3 marks. And to find the mean, well, I've got 13 scores of 0 plus 2 scores of 1 plus 3 scores of 2 and so on, divided by, the question has told you there were 40 pupils in total, so it turns out to be 2.2. Remember, this is important, it turns up on every paper, so it's a free 3 marks really, because you can always guarantee it being there. Type this into your calculator, round it to 2 significant figures. The first significant figure is the first number that's not a 0, so there's my first significant figure, there's my second significant figure. The next number's a 3, so I don't need to round up, so it's just 0.35. Multiply this out, that went fine for everybody, 6n minus 12. Factorise this, again it's 3 marks because it turns up on every paper. What's the biggest thing you can divide into a p squared and into 5p? Well, you can put the p on the outside and then you get a p minus 5, so that multiplies out to give me p squared, and that multiplies out to give me the minus 5p. This one is really difficult for a foundation tier question, so don't worry if it didn't go well. The first thing I'm going to do is deal with the fact that it's an equation on 2 lines. I'm going to make it easier by making it an equation on 1 line. So I'm going to take this 2, which at the moment is dividing, and move it to the other side. When you swap something to the other side, it does the opposite. So the opposite of dividing is timesing. So when I move it over here, the 2 timeses by the x, which gives me 2 lots of x. And now that's a much easier equation to solve. 7x take away 3 equals 2x. 2x is smaller than 7x, so I'll move that way, and I'll move the numbers away in the opposite direction, so 5x is 3 and x is 0.6. Now you must learn the right language here. These arrows mean that these 2 lines are parallel, and you might remember from Common Entrance, when you have parallel lines you get F angles and you get Z angles. Except that language isn't good enough for GCSE, you must learn the proper names. An F angle is a corresponding angle, so that's what the examiner was really looking for in this question, and a Z angle is known as an alternate angle. You would probably have been generous, the examiner would probably have been generous if you'd written something about angles the same between parallel lines, but saying that they were parallel would have been key there as well. The angles in a triangle add up to 180. In a 4-sided shape, 360, so that's another 180. In a 5-sided shape, another 180, takes you up to 540. In a 6-sided shape, another 180, tells you that there should be 720 degrees in a 6-sided shape. So we know that all of these angles together must add up to 720. So if I take the 720 and take these other angles away from it, I find that the y should have been 122. You may wish to go back and make a note of that in your theory folder where we've named all the different sides of shapes. This was well done, particularly the fact that a few people read the question carefully and gave the correct answer rather than just giving the increase. The increase is 8%, so 8% of 475 is £38. So the increase was £38. But the question has asked for the new price. So the new price is the £475 that it used to be plus the 38 that it's been increased by, 513. Now there's a variety of ways of doing this, but this is difficult, so I don't mind if it didn't go well. It's told you that the increase was £48, and it's told you further up that the increase was 8%. So you know that 8% of the old price was £48. Now the simplest way to do this is to play around on your calculator until you find 8% of what gives you £48. And it turns out that that's 600. 8% of 600 is £48. So it's not an especially difficult number to find. It's not like they've asked you to find £593.27 or something. So 8% of 600 is £48. So you know that the old price must have been 600. So the new price is the 600 plus the £48 increase. Now this symbol means which is in both, so the A is in both, the E is in both, and the U is in both. So A, E and U is the intersection of set S and set V. This symbol means what happens if you just list the two sets, put them together. So you'd have an S, Q, U, A, R, E from this one. We've already dealt with the A and we've already dealt with the E, but we can add an I, we can add an O, and we can add a U. We've already got the U, sorry. So yes, really there shouldn't have been a second U on the end there. That's a misprint on my part. All of these formulas are on the formula sheet, and dealing with cylinders turns up quite a lot, so it's worth knowing that they're there. Notice the word that's been given in bold. They want the total surface area, so that means the area of the lid, and the area of the sides, and the area of the base. So you're told on the formula sheet the area of a circle is pi r squared, so that accounts for that one and that one. And the curved area of the side of the tin is given by 2 pi rh. So all you've got to do now is substitute 5.1 for the radius, 3.7 for the height, and type it into your calculator. There are 365 days in a year, and we're estimating, so we're assuming that all these runners are evenly spread throughout the year. So there would have been around about 103 people born on every day of the year. A nice easy SOHCAHTOA question. You can tell it's SOHCAHTOA and not Pythagoras because it's got an angle involved in it. You don't care about the opposite. You don't know what it is and you don't want to know what it is. So it can't be SO or TOA because they both involve an opposite. So it must be CA. You're trying to find the angle, so it's a cos to the minus 1, A goes on top, H goes underneath, so 8.3 on top, 9.5 underneath. And then you type exactly that into your calculator. And be careful to pick up the very last mark on the paper by remembering to read the question and give it to one decimal place.